Today's video, I'm going to be talking about why you're still sick, why you haven't made any true progress in your healing to this point, even though you've probably spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money trying to resolve your chronic health issues. And believe me, guys, I was there myself and I was so hard headed. I never gave up. Thankfully, I found the right framework and the right path, which we'll go over that today as well. But it's incredibly frustrating. And yes, the money part, that's exhausting. But I think what is worse is the quality of life and the years of your life that you just are not able to enjoy and be at your fullest because of chronic health conditions. So there is a way out, and I'm going to walk you through kind of big picture what that looks like. If you're looking for more detail, you can comb through some of the other videos where I go more into food, supplements, things like that. But when I was really sick, I kind of had like a slow burn. I had lots of health conditions, several related to Epstein-Barr, a lot of gut issues, and it took me a long time to get to where I'm at now. But I remember like how pissed off I would get at like all these doctors, functional, traditional, alternative, whatever. And, like they're supposed to like have all these answers and all, the testing was going to show us this and this supplement was going to do that. And this diet's going to take care of that. And I was like, how many things can fail? And I knew it wasn't just me. And so we're going to walk through all that today. So let me walk you through the cycle that I went through, which most of you have been through this as well. So it starts off, you have some health condition, some symptom, something pops up, and you might start with your traditional doctor, right? Go get checked out, make sure it's nothing scary or serious. And we all know how that ends up when it comes to chronic health issues. And they'll tell you the same thing. They're not great at treating that stuff, right? They're great if you have a life-threatening condition, but if you have chronic mystery symptoms and illnesses, good luck. Like they might be able to give you something that can suppress the symptoms for a while. That's going to be the most you're going to get. So most of us realize that pretty quickly. And if you're here watching that video, that's probably you as well. And then the next step is you're going to go look into alternative or functional medicine, right? So, I mean, this could be anything from going to acupuncture, to, getting the functional blood workup. There's a whole world of functional things that seem to have helped some people with chronic health conditions, right? So that seems like a logical next step, and they're more natural. They're saying, hey, you don't need these pharmaceuticals, and like, hey, that's appealing. Nobody wants to be stuck on drugs the rest of their life. So we go and check that out, right? And that opens up this whole other pathway that in the beginning seems very promising. Right? It's like, all right, well, this person, they know this material. They say they're gonna lead me down this path, and that path is usually it's gonna start with testing, right? They're gonna say, hey, we gotta test, not guess. And so there is a whole world of alternative and functional testing that can be done. And for me, that gave me like this, I built it up in my head, I guess, so much like, oh my God, like I'm finally going to be able to see in black and white what's going on inside my body, what the problem is. This was a decade plus ago, so it's still newer. It's like, my God, this is going to fix everyone. This is amazing. So even though I had lost faith in traditional medicine, for some reason I was like, oh, well, we can just use those same tests that come from that paradigm. If we just look at them differently, like that's going to solve all the issues. And I did all the testing on myself. And I used to run functional medicine tests on clients back in the day. I have not run tests for a very long time. But so that's the next step is you'll get a bunch of testing done. You'll get some testing, blood tests, saliva tests, stool tests, genetic testing, whatever it is based on your symptoms and whatever your doctor's training is, you're going to go into that. And then some results are going to come out of that. And next up, typically, you're going to get prescribed a whole host of supplements. And I love supplements. I think supplements are fantastic. I'll take supplements for the rest of my life. I take very good, clean, useful supplements. The world of supplements, as you can imagine, has a wide range from like incredibly helpful healing supplements to supplements that are not so good, to supplements that are totally useless, to supplements that have actually a negative impact on your health, right? So there's this whole wide range. And you can, and people do spend lots and lots of money each month trying to keep up with this supplement regimen. They end up, it takes over their pantry and their kitchen. They're on so many supplements. It's a whole thing. They've got them all sectioned off. And sometimes you do get some decent supplements mixed in there. And that can help you feel a little bit better for sure. But it's never going to be the whole answer. It's never going to be the final answer. Supplements alone aren't going to do it. Now, most of these functional or alternative medicine practitioners, they're also going to recommend some type of diet, but it's generally kind of like a vague diet recommendation, right? And so it's like, oh, well, eat less inflammatory foods, focus on more protein and fat, everyone says cut out the processed junk food. Hey, I'm on board with that too. That's great advice. Nobody should be eating that if they want to be healthy. But again, it's generally like that. Or even if it's based on a food sensitivity test from up here that your doc did, there's lots of faults with that as well. Or if they're saying like, hey, do a keto or a plant-based or whatever, that's still very vague because they're taking one diet belief system and placing it on everyone, right? And that's not the specificity that's going to be needed for most people in order to get the healing results that they want. So, okay, you start traditional medicine, go to functional medicine, you get your testing, your supplements, your diet. Some people are going to feel somewhat better here. And they're like, okay, all right, I'm feeling better, but what's next? Like, I still have more healing to do, right? Or some people aren't going to see the needle move whatsoever. And then when you go back to your practitioner and you're not completely satisfied with where you're at, the formula is to rinse and repeat this cycle. It can be with different testing. And maybe it's like, okay, well, we looked at that for your food sensitivities. And okay, that got you maybe a little bit better, but you're still struggling. You still say you want to feel even better. So why don't we look? I think you're stressed. Why don't we run a 24-hour cortisol salivary test and let's saliva test and let's see what shows up on that, right? And then based on what shows up on that, you're going to get different supplements, maybe different diet recommendations. Maybe that helps a little bit. Maybe it doesn't. You go back to them again. They're going to say, oh, okay, well, I nailed down your food sensitivities. I nailed down your stress levels, your hormonal levels. Maybe it's mold. Do you live in have you ever thought you had mold in your house? And guess what? There's more testing, different supplements, different diet, rinse and repeat. In this cycle, you can literally get stuck in it for a lifetime. Most people do kind of opt out at some point and they're like, this isn't getting me anywhere. But it's an endless supply. And by the way, by no means am I talking junk on these practitioners. There's just a different way out there, but this is a whole industry now. And so there's a lot of influence and a lot of power, and there's some money behind it now. And it is starting to look more and more like almost the traditional medical model, just with a kind of different spin on it, sadly. But these people are trying to help, and they do think this is the right path, but it didn't help me. It doesn't help most people who are actually sick and really need serious answers for long-term support. So they are doing the best that they can, but I'm making this video if you're someone who's been in this and you realize that it wasn't enough to get you to ultimately where you want to go. So you can heal 100%. Like, I'll stick to this. I'll die on this hill. Anyone can heal who makes up their mind like, I want to do it. I'm going to do it. Now, yes, some cases, some situations are going to be much more difficult than others, 100%. But if you just make up your mind that like, my healing, my health is a top priority, you can do it. You can do it. It's not always going to look how you thought it was going to look. And I think that's what a big block is between alternative and functional and getting to the work that I do, because it's that you have to do what feels harder than like what you're told up here. Now, when you cut out the pizza and the ice cream and the cheeseburgers and the French fries, that does feel hard. That feels like a big step. Like you made big changes, and you have. Like that's an improvement for sure. But then when you have to go this whole other model of like, well, you know, it's not just eating lean protein and healthy fats and cutting out junk food. Like that actually is not a healing restorative diet. That's a symptom management diet. If you really want to heal and restore, you're going to have to cut back on your proteins and fats. That's a whole other level that a lot of people just have trouble opening up their mind to. But again, it's not like some people's bodies won't do well with that. Everyone's bodies will do well with that. That is the formula. It's just a question of what does your path to get to that point look like versus anyone else's. And it can look different person to person for sure. So that's one roadblock. The other thing is it's not always fair, right? And when people come in and they're like, all right, well, I get it. Like I need to give up dairy. Do I have to do this the rest of my life? I don't know. You know, it depends on what's exactly is happening inside your body. You know, what your goals are for your health long-term. Like there's all these factors that are going to determine that. Like, what do you consider success to be? Like all these subjective things there. That for some people, it's going to feel very unfair. And I would agree with that. It's not fair. Would it be pretty sweet if we could all just kind of eat or indulge at least time to time and like not have any of these repercussions with our health? Yeah, that'd be fantastic. That would be ideal. But that's not the reality for a lot of people. So that's another thing that we kind of have to come to terms with. And we can have a pity party for ourselves if we want to. But at some point, if you want to heal, you have to move past that and just get busy doing the work that needs to be done. There is this proven framework. And again, it's that I talked about this in other videos, and it's the lowering the fats and the proteins that are not healing. They're not restorative, and bringing in those healing and cleansing foods and figuring out how to tip the scales to where each day you're putting in your body, you're filling your body with many more healing and cleansing foods than foods that do nothing or foods that lead to damage and degradation of your body. That's the framework. That's the framework. And of course, that looks different person to person. That's why I do coaching, is to help people figure that out. But that's the big picture of where you have to go. And so I've noticed over the years, like the traits or the things that have to happen, the sequences that people go through to get those breakthrough transformations. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Like health is obviously, if you're watching this video, if it's not your number one priority, it's towards the top of your list. At least that's what you tell yourself, right? You know, so it's not like, oh, I can just eat less bad food some of the time and like I can have tremendous health. That might have been the case decades ago, but it's not any longer. Like there's more pathogens out there. There's more toxins out there than ever before. So to win that battle for your health does require more sacrifice. And the sequence that this goes in is, number one, it starts with knowing. And that's what you think you're going to get when you get a test result back. It's like, oh my God, like broccoli. I used to love broccoli, but it showed up on my food sensitivity test. That must have been what was keeping me sick and fatigued all these years. No, of course not. There's no truth to that. But you think you're going to get this starting block, this foundational piece of like knowing why you have these issues with the testing, but that's not the reality. So knowing comes from just understanding like pathogens and toxins, viruses, bacteria, toxic heavy metals. That's what it all goes back to. And everyone has some combination of those in their body that's leading to their chronic health issues. That's the first step. Then you have to go through that. You have to have motivation. You have to decide, like, this is something I want to do. I can't drag anyone who is not motivated to make these changes. I can't go to someone's house and prepare their food and actually put it in their mouth and make them chew and swallow it, right? Like that's not a thing. So you have to decide that your health is worth it. And you have to, say like, now's the right time. I'm going to fight for my health. I'm going to do some things differently than I have in the past, but I have faith in my body to heal, and I'm expecting a different outcome. And I've done tough things in the past, and I've gotten through them. And, I'm going to do it again when it comes to my health. All right, so that's great. You understand what's going on inside your body. You've decided now is the right time to do it. The next thing that comes is going to be determination. Because for most people, in most instances, this is not going to feel easy. Sometimes it can feel like pretty like, okay, like this is no big deal. But for a lot of people, there are going to be times or situations where this feels difficult, right? Because you're doing something that's different than what you've done in the past. It's going to be different than what your peers are doing because they haven't gone through these initial steps. They haven't taken the time to kind of understand what can happen in the body. They're certainly not at a point where like, hey, my health is the top priority, right? So of course, like most people who are like, yeah, I'm kind of trying to eat healthy, but when I'm out, out on the weekend with the boys, like anything goes, like I'm, yeah, of course I'm going to have pizza. Like I'm not some weirdo, like that's the thought process. There are going to be situations that come up like that where you're going to have to like make a decision for you. Like, are you going to make a decision for your health or for your comfort in that moment? And guys, by the way, this by no means is like a declaration that you have to be perfect 100% of the time. That's also not the reality. I've seen people get great results and they've strayed from the framework. Some other people do need to be like much more focused, especially in the beginning, to get to where they want to go. But everyone's totally different in that regard. Okay, so you have the knowingness. You've decided now is the right time to clean up your health. And you have some determination. Like, you're going to face challenges and hurdles. And you're like, okay, I'm just going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out how I'm going to stick to making these healthy choices, even when it feels hard, right? That's great. Then the fourth thing that typically is going to happen is the person's going to have resiliency. And by that, I mean, you're going to have some quality that when you get knocked on your ass, because you most likely will at some point in this process, you have to say, okay, I got knocked on my ass, and then get right back up and get right back to work. Because healing's not always easy and it's not always linear, right? And so you can be doing everything or most things right, and you can still have setbacks. Things that can happen that are totally out of your control that could cause you to have a flare-up. If you have like an autoimmune condition, it could flare back up. And that can really play tricks on your mind when that happens, right? Because you're like, man, I dedicated myself. Like I've been doing all these, making all these different decisions, and I still have a flare up after like months of doing this. Like, what's like this? Is this just another thing that's not going to work? No. There are always explanations. That's a whole different discussion, but you have to have that hard-headedness. Like the mindset has to be like, I'm not going to let this win. Like I'm not going back to where I was. I'm going to, if I get knocked down, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to get back up and I'm going to 2x or 5x or 10x the efforts that I was putting in before, so I can get out of this phase where this is happening even quicker. You have to be a stubborn son of a gun sometimes to really make it through to the other side. But if you have these and you're willing to like, if you don't have them, you're willing to work on developing some of these qualities, you're going to do great, because we're all humans, as far as I know, who are watching this. And we all have the same body parts that function the same way. And they all get thrown off track by the same set of things. So you just have to, you have to use the framework, figure out how much you want to do within that framework, and you have to keep doing it. And if you stick to that, you're going to get to a very happy place. But man, I see so many people who, number one, just never get out of this. Obviously, there are a lot of people who never come out of this. I usually don't see those people. People are like pretty chill, like, I'll just do drugs, surgery, whatever. Like that's just life. They're happy staying here. Okay. A lot of people that I do end up talking to, they've already been through this, and they can get stuck there. So if you're just willing to make that next step, and you have fight left in you, and you have some of your spirits still going, and like, you really want to see this through, and you really feel like you should be healthy, which I would agree with. And I would say, yes, you should be healthy. Then yeah, you can get to a really cool place, see really cool changes. It's very, very simple stuff. The testing that seems so high tech and fancy, like it's entertaining. That's all. It's entertainment, basically, at the end of the day. It's making you feel like you did something productive, whether you're the practitioner or the client. Like, oh, like, yeah, I got this test. Like, cool. It's not going to help move you forward, though. So you have to just like buckle down, decide now's the time. If you do that, great things will happen. If you need help, just reach out to me. I love helping people down this path. It's very fun. And I know what it's like when you're starting out and it seems like pretty bleak and like everything's kind of like just not going to work. But that's not true. There is a formula. If you figure out how to make that formula work for you, that's where you get the win.